Hey, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Quo. I'm Stacey Luces, and this is a podcast where we don't just talk about leadership. We actually bring people on that have redefined it in their own way. If you've ever wondered if you're too late to start, I talk about this a lot of times. People kind of stay in that little pocket where it's too late to start something new, redefine who you are, move to another city, have a stern conversation with a partner or relationship, and it's never too late. It's just, what's the opportunity? And we hope that this podcast gives you a little bit of insights and strategies into what's worked for other people, whether they're a leader in their community or a leader in corporate or a leader just in their life, doing things differently and outside of the quo. Our aim here is to really look for those tiny little 2mm shifts that can really make the difference. We spend so much time also measuring ourselves against timelines that we didn't even create. So I know when I was younger, I was like, okay, I have to be married by maybe 25, 30. I've got to have a kid by XYZ, the house with the white picket fence. And so we fall into these narratives created for us by other people. And if we don't hit those arbitrary timelines and we see other people doing it, we sort of judge ourselves and measure ourselves against that and think that we're behind. So this conversation, I hope, inspires you to shift some things in the way that you're thinking. Rob, is it Jager? Jager. Rob Jager and I met a couple of months ago, and he was giving a presentation and I was chiming in because I felt like he was speaking my corporate language. But what I also loved about the conversation after was that we both had been in similar situations and we both kind of came out, as I like to call it, of the matrix. So what I'm hoping for in this is that Rob's going to bring us some real world lens to leadership and business. He's doing things a bit differently. And not only is he doing it differently, he's doing it with his partner, with his wife, which is very interesting. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And he is also the host of a sales podcast. He's the chair of the Boynton Beach Government Affairs Committee. He is the co-owner, as I said, with his wife, of Plum Productions. This is an award-winning corporate video company. It's based right here in South Florida. I'm sure a lot of you listening locally know him. And what I specifically love about this story, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, his path has taken him from managing big box retailers to launching a restaurant chain, and now to helping businesses tell their story through powerful video. Rob, welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yay. Awesome.
This will be fun.
So today we're going to talk about a few things, jogging your memory and mine.
Yes.
How you transitioned across industries by betting on your own skill set. And what does that look like for people that are really nervous about that? Because I think what happens is we are an expert at a certain age in a certain industry, and the thought of going into something different makes us feel like we're starting from scratch. Yeah. So I want to kind of crush that a little bit. The power of authentic client relationships in a world obsessed with metrics. Metrics matter, but if you take the temperature of a cricket enough, it will die.
Yes, true.
And why redefining success sometimes means slowing down, showing up, and letting your leadership speak for yourself. So let's go beyond the quo with Rob and get to it a little bit more.
Let's get started.
Before we dig in, right? Like, one of the things I love to dive in about is kind of that definition of success, whether it's the relationship success or the career success or the college or whatever. But how have you redefined success in your life, in your second phase? And what have you kept from that first phase?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question. So to me, the definition of success can just vary a lot by different people, right? But for me, it's one of those, you can't be defined by your role. Your success is really defined on your life in general, I think. So it's got to be kind of all of it and together. Mm-hmm. If you make it about your role, you will feel, the first time you don't close a sale or the first time you fail at something, you will just end everything. Like that's devastating. When it really isn't. It should be something you learn from and take from and go, okay, what did I learn from that? And what should I do differently now, knowing that? And use that and apply that into future things. So that to me becomes kind of a success piece, right? Mm-hmm. You end up with knowledge that you've learned over time, and you just continuously apply that to all the stuff that you go as you go forward. And that's kind of what I did before. So the stuff that I learned in Big Box was leadership stuff. I learned how to deal with people. I learned what people were like. Yeah. Like people are people. I always say people are people.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Humans will human.
Yes, every time. They never disappoint, right? Yeah. And so when you start to listen to people, you go, okay, what's their motivation? Why are they doing it that way? What are they doing? And what's their end game? And then when you start to learn and figure that stuff out, you can start to figure out, okay, this is what makes them tick, if you will. And I don't mean that in a negative way, in a manipulative way. It's more of understanding that and then being able to speak their language. And that's kind of part of the process.
We had when I worked for Homeland Security, we were doing this massive project and we all had these little IPT, these little integrated product teams. And one of the things what was new to me at the time, I was a lot younger, was this 8 a.m. huddle.
Yep.
And so every morning at 8 a.m. and now I know that's kind of a norm now, but 8 o'clock, everybody's standing together in a very close huddle and really talking about three things. And the three things that this leader wanted us to talk about, it took me aback, like as a young professional, but as an older professional, I use it quite a bit. So the three things was, what are you hoping to accomplish today? What can I as the leader do to move things out of your way, like any obstacles? And the third one was super interesting. Is there anything going on that I need to know that's going to interrupt how you work today? And it was such a unique question because typically we're like little androids and we show up and nobody really cares about like if your dog died or anything like that. But I guess why I'm bringing it up is you're absolutely right. We want to know what makes people tick. And again, and not in a manipulative way, but definitely what's going on that's going to interrupt what we think is going to happen for something that has a definitive milestone attached to it, right? Like if we are in a sprint. Yep. And the things that came up, Rob.
I would imagine. It
was so many things. Like my garage door wouldn't close. Yep. And so it ran from the kind of mundane, chaotic, funny things like me, being interrupted by traffic today to big, big things. Yep. Like my dad is experiencing early onset Alzheimer's or whatever, right? But how do you find yourself navigating kind of in your new world of entrepreneurship and then coming out of corporate where it was very different skill sets, but kind of the same, less structured maybe. What's kind of a commonality between managing clients that may be going through the same thing, but showing up for a schedule, like have to show up on video, which we all hate. We don't even like smiling for pictures.
Yeah, no, the short answer is a couple things. One, those three questions are really critical anyway. I mean, and I think a lot of people do that now in corporate. Like you said, that was way before all that stuff. But I do remember when I was in retail, there was a point where I had an individual who, and I just, at one point, you're low on the totem pole, right? You move your way up. So I'm running an overnight grocery stocking crew. I mean, like literally having that kind of a role. And it was an interesting job. And the thing that was kind of cool was it was in a place that was much like South Florida, where it's a place people go vacation during a certain time. And so I was in Michigan, it was on the coast. Everybody would go to the beach during summer.
Yes.
And I took over in March. And they told me, good luck, sir. Everybody's going to call in sick over the summer. It's going to be a tough summer.
Yeah.
And
especially in Michigan.
Yeah.
Like you got 2 days of summer proper.
Yes. And so everybody, like literally everybody, including the people that live there, want to enjoy summer. So I said to myself, okay, I can struggle or I can take the advice of a few people that I talked to. And they said, just be ready. And I said, what do you mean? And so I learned from that. And basically what it came down to was this: from March to June, before it was warm, I was holding people accountable to their job. They didn't show up on time. I don't care if it was 10 minutes late. We had a conversation. All those types of things, right? But in that process, I had to learn what made people motivated to come in every day too. And why were they doing it?
Oh, that's such a key word, motivation.
Well, there was a reason they were there. One, obviously the pay was pretty good because it was overnight. They were getting a premium. There was all kinds of other things going on. But there were other things in their lives that said, I need to work overnight so that during the day I could do this, right? And I had 2 or 3 guys that were in this band together. And of course, summertime, guess what they're doing? They're playing.
Gigs.
Of course. And so what I ended up doing is I worked with them to, first of all, make sure that they were on time. They were scheduled when they were available mostly, but mostly during the rest of the build-up time. Their job was to make sure that they were doing their job and being there when they were supposed to be. And sometimes they would call in. And so I had them to the point by June 1st, every one of my team, they really couldn't not show up because they were used to the previous guy that let them just not show up. And then there was no accountability. Yeah. And so understanding that, first of all, I knew that I needed to hold people accountable. That was one thing. But then secondary was what motivates them. So the guys that were in the band, I came to them and said, listen, I know you guys are in a band. When it comes to summertime, I want you to go play. You guys should be able to do that. What I need you to do is help me develop some of the other team members so they can fill in for you when you're gone.
Yeah.
And they were like, I'm on it. Who do you want to train? And so
I'm all over that guy.
And so all of a sudden they were training my team to do as good of a job as they would do.
Yeah.
And there were several other pieces that would fit together for that made it so that they could take their time off. Yes, there were sudden gigs that came up and they would call in, but they were to the point they could only make the decision once or twice through the whole summer.
I really love that.
And I got to the middle of summer, guy running the store came up to me and goes, how did you do that? How come nobody's calling in? And I go, what do you mean? We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Like it was a team accountability. We would walk through in the morning and we critique each other.
You understood the obstacle in a way that was very unique, that lens that you put on in terms of, I'm going to equate this to parenthood because what it's bringing up for me. So Kevin, my husband and I have been married for 22 years. Yeah. We're very different parents. Like he's a lot more liberal, I think. And I'm like a little bit more of the disciplinarian, unfortunately. But
somebody's got to do it.
Right. I couldn't get my son to do his homework. And so we locked down. No PS5 during the week. You can only have it Friday night. Like I went like full on militia, right? And Kevin sat with him one night, kind of like what you're talking about. Just real bro, right? Yep. Sat in the pocket and said, dude, what's important to you? Like, why do you like PS5 so much? Yep. Well, I like my friends. And he had a transition from a middle school to high school where he didn't know anybody. And that's the only time I get to talk to them. And, and Kevin was like, well, we need you to do your homework because that's important to us, right? Like for your future. And so they worked out a deal where he would get an hour PS5 if he did an hour's homework.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And he did it.
Yep.
Up until now. And I just sat there.
Yep. I was learning.
But he used a motivator and something that was intrinsically important to Adam, which was time with his friends as a tool to kind of, I had never thought of it. I just went full on, which I think some leaders do. If you're showing up late, they want to put you on a performance improvement plan and shadow you and hover and send me a status report every day.
Yep.
And I think what you're saying is like, take a step back and understand, hey, I think you were very candid. Like you were very candid and said, hey, I know you're in a band. It's
you have to.
to. Yeah.
Well, and it's something that
I love that.
Yeah. It's not just the candid part too. It's understanding their motivation, but also how do I help you? And so I always look at it this way.
Mutual goal setting, right?
Yeah. But it's also one of those I've learned, and this is more recently since then, but what I've also learned is that people will run towards the things that they really like to do and enjoy. Right.
I love
But
that.
they also run from the things that hurt them or don't do them service, right? So they don't want to work with somebody. They don't want to be with somebody. They don't
Avoidance.
They get away from them. But if they really like somebody, they really enjoy being around that person, they will tend to gravitate towards that person. Yeah. Knowing that, it's the same thing that your husband did. He knew that, your son wants to play.
He probably does that with me too, with cooking.
More than likely. You just don't even know. That means he's really good at it. That's all. If you don't even know, that means he's really good.
He runs a night shift staff too at the hospital. So I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah.
So I love that you have done. So I also worked in retail. I never did restaurant though. I don't know that I could ever be. I couldn't. I just don't have kind of the patience for that, right? But you've worked in retail, restaurants, and now media. Yeah. What mindset or skill stayed constant across each chapter, and what did you have to unlearn?
Unlearn, yeah, that's a good question. So the things that were the same, people are people. That was the same.
Yeah.
The fact that I worked in a large corporation helped me, or particularly helps me in this company.
Yeah.
Because we have so many big corporate clients that we can talk the language. And Jen, my wife, does the same thing. She's been in that world before too. She worked for media, big companies. She knows how to talk the language, and it's about metrics and it's about hitting certain goals and objectives. And while metrics can be looked at as bad things, they can be, these are the goals and objectives.
Good indicators.
Yeah, you have to
love
do it,
metrics,
right? Yeah. So the ability for us to speak the language is really what makes, I feel like, us stand apart a little bit, because when somebody says, well, we need to have it by this day, then we have to think, all right, my team has to know it's not just that day. It's like 10 days to 2 weeks before that, this is done. and it's in their hands.
First draft and
the whole thing's done. Like unless they're telling me, hey, I'm coming to you today and I need it by next week in 7 days, then we're going to have a frank conversation before we even start.
Yeah.
But besides that, if we're working on a project and they said June 15th is when this is due and today's May 1st, then we've got to talk about timelines. What's expected of you, client, what's expected of us. And then my team has to understand that, what our goals are. So all those things translate really well, understanding the corporate side of things. What did I have to unlearn?
Sure.
It's probably the hard part in retail is sometimes you have a boss that's like, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
You either do it or get out of my way.
Yeah. It's like that in federal government.
Yeah. And it was a little bit that I got used to that. And also the other part, and this is not, so anybody that's in retail knows this, but that has been around for a while. In the old days is the way it used to be. I don't know if it is anymore, but they used to have this thing called a cooler talk. When you were in trouble, your boss would bring you to the cooler and you'd have some very, very frank conversations. Sure. And like, you better figure this out. And it wasn't always friendly. Yeah. And I got to experience that one time. Yeah. And
giving it or getting it?
Both.
But, Rob, you don't seem like the type that would get a cooler talk. Okay.
Here's the thing that I learned too, that in retail, you don't let your emotions show like that until it's time. Yeah. And then you do it once a year. And then once a year, people remember that. That's all that it takes. Yeah. So the unlearning part is just knowing that people aren't like that. They don't do that to you just because. We had a boss. I was in training and I was working with a guy that was running the store. He was training me to run the store. His boss came in. There were some things that were wrong. My opinion looked pretty good, but hey, the boss was like, I want to make a point. Yeah. And he wanted to teach me a lesson too, I think. Like, we're not letting you get to this and do this. And so we went to the cooler and he's like, come on, let's take a look. And then we went in the cooler. I was like, whoa. And I walked out going, I don't know what to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but it happened. And so that corporate feeling of, do this or else, it's the same feeling that we have when we have clients where you want to make sure they're happy. Yeah. But does that mean they're going to yell at you? Like, no, they're not. Never do that.
And I think also in entrepreneurship, we are wholly more authentic, showing up as who we really are.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big things I have found across all of the episodes or even podcasts I listen to, is this notion of wearing the corporate identity and sort of being somebody completely different for the most part when you're out of there. And so for me, the intersection has become, how do I show up as myself or help my clients show up as more of themselves, their authentic selves, so that there is not this jagged disconnect between who you are and what you do. Yep. Because that creates all sort of other things, right? It creates burnout. It creates a whole bunch of other things. But I'll give you, speaking of metrics and a little statistics. So 67% of employees report higher engagement when their leaders exhibit authenticity and vulnerability. And companies that prioritize authentic leadership experience 54% higher employee retention rates and 27% greater profitability compared to their peers. And we see that in big brands. Yep. Like the brands that we connect with and we feel that they know us. Yep. I mean, you will just take whatever they dish out to some extent because they've created and engineered that loyalty. How does that translate now to real life? Like, you came out of corporate. Tell me a little bit about that transition. Like, what was for some people, there's like a breaking point. For me, it was like a significant illness, a burnout, surgery, flatlining. I had to change.
That was me.
Same?
Yeah. 15, 16 years in retail. I finally was like, I don't need to do this. Yeah. Why am I working all the holidays? I'm there all the weekends.
Blackout days.
All blackout days. I mean, for the most part, it became when Halloween hit, I wouldn't see really family.
You were theirs.
Till New Year's. Yeah. It was like, and even New Year's, I was sometimes working. So, because I worked in a company that was 24 hours, 7 days a week. The only day they closed, was Christmas Day. Every other day they were open. And they still are, I think. And that was fine. I didn't mind doing that, but that just kind of, I was like, I don't need to do this anymore. And I had some conversations with my dad, and they had retired, and he was like, I think I have an opportunity here. Look at this. And so that's when I got into the restaurant business. And it was kind of an interesting small restaurant. It was a franchise kind of a thing. And I opened the store up. He helped, my dad helped me a little bit with getting the stuff open and getting all the things lined up and done and all that kind of stuff. And after a while, you talk about metrics. here's the funny part. This franchise was pretty young, right? They had like 60 stores or something like that in Florida and around the country. And here I come from a big operation. I know all the metrics. I know what's going on with these, and I know the daily sales, and I know who's doing what now.
Right.
And I walk in,
you're walking in dangerous.
Yes. And now I'm doing this restaurant. I have a small restaurant. I'm running it, and I'm like, okay, company, where's this? And they're like, we don't have that set. We don't have that.
We don't even have an SOP, man. Like we're doing it
they barely
day.
had that. And so I had to come up with my own. We came up with our own manual, like a handbook kind of a thing. Yeah. We had to come up with. I developed a spreadsheet that told me how much each sandwich cost, because they didn't have that, and it would vary based on. So I had to create a sheet that said, okay, enter in from your invoices. Here's what it costs for this case. And I knew that from this sandwich, there might be this many slices of, and so I divided by, so each tab had its own sandwich and calculated it all out, profit. I showed it to somebody that came in from corporate, and they're like, where did this come from? I made it. And he goes, huh? How did you do that? I'm like, because I need to know what my cost is.
Try to walk around being a normal person.
No. Don't put me on this.
Rob and you're not, it's not a pedestal, Rob, but it's the same with me. Like we try to walk around stealth mode, like we weren't corporate, like elite, but then you open your mouth and you're like, we talked about that.
Yeah, I know.
We talked about that one time. What has surprised you about working with your wife? Like in business,
I think honestly, the biggest surprise is that I can do it.
Yes.
And I think the reason that we can do this as well as we do, because we know several couples who tried and failed miserably.
So do I, yeah. And siblings too.
Yeah, siblings too. And then we've also known several people that have done it and have consistently done it over the years. Yeah. And the difference, I think, between the ones that fail and the ones that make it are the ones that have clearly defined lanes.
I love that.
I mean, put it this way. Jen does the creative. She's the creative director. She does all the creative stuff.
Yeah.
She will come up with ideas, concepts, everything like that. If somebody says, how much is this going to cost? She's going to go, I don't know. Yeah. And that's my lane. Yes. My lane is doing this type of stuff, doing sales, doing the numbers, doing the books and all that kind of stuff. Making the sandwich, all the nuts and bolts stuff. And even managing some of the team stuff, right? And where's that? Just keeping everybody on track. Where's the pipeline management and the project management? Those are the two things that I really have to do. And keeping the clients out. The clients rarely have to deal with me directly. I deal with them in the beginning. I work with them through, but I'm there behind the scenes during it. Jen's doing some of that and the rest of the team's doing some of that. And then I come in when there's a problem. What happened? What do we need to fix? And I usually know about it before the client does. And then fix the problem if there is any. Rarely, but if it does, it does. And then we final invoice. And that's
roles and responsibilities, clear communication. What about boundaries?
You mean at work and home? So it's funny.
Like Saturday morning over a nice Lux bagel
that's true. So here's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
There have been several times where I bring stuff up at work, stuff at home, and I'm told, not right now. As simple as that. And I'm like, and she's like, no, nope. And I say, okay. And so that's one of the things that I try to make sure that I keep in mind. But for the most part, there are times where she brings it up and I can say the same thing back. If any one of us wants to say that, we can say it. But really what it comes down to is when it's your own business and you're doing it, it's your passion. It's what you love doing. And so it's hard to turn it off. It's really hard. Last night I was doing something where I was at home and I flipped on the computer. I started working on something. Because I needed to get it done. Yeah. And I knew today was going to be one of those days. I just wasn't going to have a lot of time.
I got up at 4 a.m.
Yes, that's how you work.
And I think that is something that
4 a.m. is crazy.
I'm an early person. I'm an early bird, but then I'll go to bed at 9 p.m. and I'll go dark. But for me, the newest thing about my life, and you talk about a passion project, is having to turn it off when it's your own right thing, right? And I think that is a hard thing, especially if people are building, and I don't know how Jen did it or you did it, but I built my business parallel to working full time. So I know a lot of people they call it a side hustle or a heart hustle or whatever, but they are building something in parallel to what's paying the bills.
Yeah.
And that's hard to turn off. But what's your advice on kind of, I guess, not doing both, but maintaining the integrity of both roles? Because somebody's still paying you full time to show up and do your job.
Yeah.
And they have their own expectations. And then you have this thing that you really want to lift off the runway.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to sort of still maintain balance with yourself. But what are maybe a couple good 2 or 3 tips where you can sustain both, but still maintain all the things that in our grown-up years become impeccably important: our health, our relationships, our own joy, right?
Well, first of all, if it's a passion, you're going to find the time, you're going to figure it out, right? And so I know there's a lot
so
of
good and bad.
It's very good and bad. I mean, you really can invest a lot of time in something that you really shouldn't be investing in.
Yeah.
But there's a part of you that has to know whether or not this is going to work or not. And so you have to start it off. I mean, Jen started the company 2009 and she started it. Yeah, it was a side thing, but she was working at another company. She saw some issues that were going on and she was like, I don't really want to be here for a long time. Right. Well, let me just put my toe in the water. She had that intuition
early.
Yeah. Let me put my toe in the water, see what happens. Yeah. And she got some jobs and she slowly started to develop. And then I joined in. And we started to figure out, we gave it 6 months. At one point we said, let's give me 6 months in here. And then if not, it doesn't work. I'll go back to doing what I was doing. Yeah. And it obviously 6 months went.
Here we are. Yeah, years later.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to, but you do have to make a decision at some point. Okay. My toes in the water. Is this going to be?
Now I'm up to my knees.
Yeah. When do I need to make this decision? Yeah. And honestly, it was hard for us when we were growing. Do we hire somebody? Do we not hire somebody? And I had a coach at one point who said to me, well, how much are you going to pay that person? Yeah. And I said, I don't know, let's say it's X number of dollars an hour. He goes, okay, let's make it $40 hours a week, that many dollars. Why don't you put away that much money every week? Put it in a separate bank account. When you have 3 months saved, it's time to hire. Yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. Because he goes, if you would have done that, you would have paid them, you would have been producing, you would have had them making other stuff.
And there's a immense opportunity cost to what you could be doing alternatively than me. I'm speaking into the mirror here, trying to figure out CapCut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the opportunity cost to you trying to figure it out and DIY it when you could just, Do you see a lot of that with people coming to you for video production?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I get a lot of people that you get both, right? Yes. You get the kind that they know what they need and blah, blah, blah. And we get clients on both ends where there's, hey, I need this. Can you just execute it? Fine. And we get clients that are like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me come up with an idea? Yeah, that's what we do. So we do both ends of that. But then you also get some of those people that are like, I just started a business and I'm just trying to figure out, how to make this business grow. And sometimes video is helpful.
Yeah.
My question is it time yet? Always.
I love that.
Why is it now the time?
Say more about that.
Well, because sometimes people think that video is going.
FOMO.
Well, not only that, I think people think that video is going to sell for them.
Sure.
It doesn't. Right. And I always have to remind people, video is one piece of the puzzle. It will help you sell. It'll explain things succinctly so that people, when they find it, they go, I need that. Yeah. And then they call you. But your job is the sales, not the video. You support and the video supports you. They work hand in hand. So I always ask the question, if somebody says, I just started my business, I'm doing this, I want a video. I say, well, what's your sales process? Why now? Yeah. How many sales do you do now? If there's 0 sales now's not the time. Yeah. Because you don't even know if you can get it done that fast. And if you can execute and fulfill the orders if you get them, right?
Yeah.
So now's not the time.
Yeah.
Come talk to me.
You don't have evidence of fulfillment yet.
Yeah. And
wow.
it's
worse yet if they don't have a process and so forth in the back end, right?
Yeah.
Who are your, I hate to say favorite clients, but I feel like a lot of time as entrepreneurs, we take what we can get in the beginning and then we have a little bit more discernment.
Yes.
And then we get very clear on what works and what doesn't work. And it's a bunch of things for peace of mind, for our process, for impact on our staff and our partners. But what does your dream client look like? And then why are you a dream provider?
A dream provider? That's an interesting question. I don't know. So
Like out of all the people doing video production or whatever it is, like, why am I like, oh my God, Jen and Rob?
I don't know why. The clients tell us what I think it comes down to is
Jen's going to be like,
yeah, no, I do. I mean, I do know why. What it comes down to, a lot of our clients tell us this. They say, you make it really easy. Mm-hmm. You come up with ideas that are different than I would have thought of. If they come up with an idea, they say, I want to do this. And we say, yeah, but what if we did this too?
Give them a whole new perspective.
Yeah. So we had a client come to us one time. This is several years ago, but probably one of my favorite projects that we did. They came to us with an idea. They said, okay, so they're a construction company and they have a restaurant they have to gut, literally pull it back to the studs, get rid of all the seating, get rid of the lighting, pull up the floor, and then rebuild it in 2 weeks.
Wow. What?
Yeah, 2 weeks. Wow. And they had 200 people in there working. Okay. So they could get it done. It was 24/7. So, and they lined up permits.
If you put 400 people in a bathroom to paint it, it's not going to get done, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So they lined up the permits and all that kind of stuff. So they come to us beforehand and said, listen, we're going to do this. It's going to be done in 2 weeks. We'd love to do a time-lapse video to show people what we can do in 2 weeks. I said, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so we said, we can do that. And they said, okay, how much is that going to run? And so we talk about the numbers. And then Jen says to me, between that meeting and another meeting, Jen says to me, well, why would we just do that? And I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, what if we just created like you ever see HGTV where they do a build out and they run the problems and then they're like, oh, this is a headache. And then all of a sudden look at the final reveal. Nobody
wants to see the journey without the ditches, right?
Correct. So that's what we ended up pitching to them. We said, hey, listen, what if we did the time lapse, but we're already going to be there doing certain things. What if we do an interview beforehand, show what the place looks like beforehand, do a midway check-in a week later, and then do a final, here's what the reveal looks like. And we can do shots of here's what it is, and then shots of thereafter, and we can transition and show and that's what we did. We ended up, they love that idea. And to this day, they still rehire us for tons of different projects over the years because they get how it works, what they can get out of the video and how they use it as a tool. I think that's where, I think my favorite clients are the ones that understand how to use it. We did a shoot not too long ago with a company that had a bunch of testimonials. We shot tons of testimonials in a day because what they do is instrumental in those people's success. And it makes them look good. And they can, the testimonials can say everything that they can't say. And people go, yeah, you're just selling yourself. Yeah. These people say, no. This is what helped me. This is how I got, this is where I am now because of them.
That's so important because I think a lot of times, especially with social media, and I like to talk about the real, the REAL versus the REEL.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is a bit of a vanity metric to have really great video and really great content without the actual substance behind it.
Yep.
Whether it's a lived experience or having a client share why it was groundbreaking for them. And I think it's important. It doesn't matter what line of work you're in, like tapping into the transformation, not just the tool. The video is the tool.
Yep.
What you're doing is creating the transformation narrative through audio and video, much like a podcast, where people feel their heartbeat faster, or they feel a little bit sweaty, or they're like, ew. Or they have that moment where it's like, oh my, I got the insight. I understand what he's trying to say. And more importantly, that idea seeds some sort of way forward to something they're stuck on, right? I love that. Using it as a tool strategically. I love that. So you have kids.
Do not have kids. No.
No kids.
No. My kids.
What are your thoughts on new leaders, like the next generation? Because you work in the community a lot. And so I really love to ask people about the next generation. Like, how is the work you do or the spaces that you're in contributing, whether you know it or not? Sometimes people don't have that insight. To the generation coming up. I had a news anchor on one time and he was like, well, I'm not sure. I said, well, think about how skeptical they are of news right now. Like, what would you say to them? So what would you say to folks in all of the industries that you've been in and all of the like rooms that you've been in about, and this is on my mind because my daughter graduated yesterday and I watched all of these speeches and all of this optimism, Rob. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be that person, which is like, oh, life is hard, like all of that mindset stuff coming back into play. Cause they're like fresh from the nest.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say to them at this pivotal point?
Well, what would I say to them? So to me, it's, you have the whole world at your hands, right? So they have more available to them than any time in the past. So they can look up and understand information and have it explained to them so much simpler. Like there are things that come up sometimes that I'm like, I don't understand that. Quantum, whatever, right? Like computing. I don't understand that. So can you explain it to me? And I just have ChatGPT explain it to me and I understand. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. I understand it. Now that doesn't mean I can
do it,
but at least I can understand. I understand what they're talking about. Yeah. So they have those types of tools available to them that we didn't have and no generation before us had. So they have the whole world in front of them. The other thing I have that I can say is that I was part of the YAY program with the chamber.
Oh, I loved that.
And
I went and saw the pitch.
Yeah, I was a second segment instructor.
Tell people what that is.
Yeah, so the YAY program is essentially high school students, some middle school, they create a business plan for an idea that they create during the program. So they start in September and they end sometime, I think in March.
And YAY stands for Young Entrepreneurs
Academy. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah.
YEA. Yeah.
Yep. And so they're developing this business plan. They come up with the idea in September, and then midway through, I came in as a midway segment instructor for 6-8 weeks, whatever it was, and would help them.
So providing that mentorship and guidance.
Yeah. And I would run the mentors in sense of getting them, here's what you need to talk about with them and help them with, but really get the numbers, like create a financial estimate. Here's what I think my business will make. Here's what the cost is. Here's what this is. Here's my margins.
Like you put the reality check on it. Yes.
And what they needed, how do I charge? What price do I charge for this? Right. And so
there's account for inflation. Like
all of
it's all of this,
all of that. The things, so all the numbers. And so then they would hand off to the third segment, who would then help them do an elevator pitch and or their final pitch, like a Shark Tank pitch. When I went through that, the kids that are in there I feel like are like the cream of the crop, right? They're the ones that obviously they have the money, they have the wherewithal, and they're smarter than the rest of the kids. I mean, I hate to say that, but they really are. They're the ones that just want to learn. And they take initiative. Yes. Yeah. When I tell you I had kids in my group, we would meet from 4 to 6, or 4 to 6, 4 to 7, something like that, every Wednesday. The kids would be getting up at 5 a.m. for practice. They would go to school all day. And they would come to YAY, and then sometimes they would go work out afterward. Yeah. And I'm like, how are you even doing that? Second, I had kids that were sitting there. I had one kid and he's very successful now. I see him online, but like I say that not just like the REEL style. It's the real, like he's doing the things. But back when he was in the class with me, I remember he was just a tiny little kid and he would raise his hand timidly and he would be like, okay, so my target market is this. How do I market to them so that I'm not making it come across? And he's like asking all these really intricate questions. And I'm like, how do you even think like that? And you're like 8 years old, like what or 12, whatever it was. Like
it humbles you, right?
Very much so. I
am so humbled.
I kind of walk out every week. Like what do I do?
What did it teach you?
It taught me that those kids, there's a future like that. Every year I see it.
I love that.
And when I go to the elevator pitches and I go to the final, I see it. I understand there's a future. They get it. They understand how numbers work. They understand how the business works. And a lot of them are trying to do things to better society. I see a lot of nonprofit ideas, a lot of ideas that are like, there was one not too long ago that was hair ties for women that are biodegradable.
I saw that pitch.
And it's like, that's
right now.
Yes.
I'm going to lose this by this evening when they finish my facial.
But it's going to biodegrade. Yes. So it's fine.
What would you say two sides to this, right? And this is part of one of the pillars I talk about is leading courageously, not only ourselves, but like in the community and like with each other. What do you say to the like folks that maybe aren't thinking like this, right? Because they're like, well, I don't have kids. I'm not involved with that kind of stuff, but there's so much fulfillment to it if it's your passion. And then to the kids that are thinking, well, it's all great for those kids to go up there and pitch their competition. I'm the eldest of 4 and I've got to like watch these kids while my single mom does her thing, second job or whatever. Like I always say, this is the old Tony Robbins thing. it's not a lack of resources. It's a lack of resourcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I can't buy. I'm like, you've got the library still exists.
Yeah.
I still borrow books. I don't buy books. One, I love the feel of books. But every month I go to the library and I get like 4 or 5 books. I get on a wait list, and it's not because I can't afford it. One, there's a sustainability thing, but it's a resource that's for all of us. But what do you say to kind of, given your experience with that journey and how much it's kind of impacted you, it seems, and then to the kids that maybe have a yearning for that, or the young adults, let's say 18 to 30, but are just unsure about how do I translate the power in my phone or these devices into like a real world tactical thing that brings me wealth? Well,
the easiest thing for them, if they're thinking, hey, I would love to be able to, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
They can.
Yes.
The difference is that program.
Say that again. They can.
Yeah, they can. There's nothing stopping anybody from doing anything anymore, right? And so I look at it and say, if you're thinking, I would love to do that, but I don't have the money to do that, you still can do it. Yeah. All of the things that they teach in there are available online anywhere. You just have to ask for it. Yeah. And I mean that as an AI, like create an AI agent that teaches you how to create a business plan. Yeah. Do that and work and make it and tell it, don't do it for me. Make me do these things and ask me the questions so that I can write this
and explain it as if I'm an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Because there's sections that are like, I don't understand how this works. I don't know what that term means. Ask it. It'll tell you, it'll explain it to you. And then you go, okay, I get it. And if you have to ask more clarifying questions, you can. It's like having the best teacher in the world without any personality, which, you can give it to a person.
Mine has a bit of a cheeky ass personality.
I mean, if you want it to, you can make it, but here's, create if you want to do that, have an agent that does all these things, but has an attitude and makes things fun. You can do all. It's limitless what anybody can do when you have that kind of tool available. And I don't know how much longer it's going to be quote unquote free or low cost. Yeah. Like at some point.
I can't believe how much I get for $20.
I can't either.
I'm like, wow.
I cannot either.
I mean, they're just warming us up till now. I feel like part of my brain is turned off.
Yeah. I mean, like I have it looking for, I have to go on a trip in August, and I'm asking it to just every day check for a flight that goes below this number. And it pings me and goes, hey, you got one here.
A quick example of how our brain is like deteriorating.
Yes.
I probably know 4 phone numbers.
Yeah.
And before I would know like so many phone numbers. Even my mom knows a lot more phone numbers than me. And so even now it's like, well, it's so effortless to just ask it, hey, create me a draft, blah, 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 and da, da, da. And then so it's sort of, I have to remind myself a lot to get back into my own critical analysis, which is what you have been talking about a lot. Yeah. When you're digging into processes, when you're digging into new work plans, when you're helping a client figure out their stuff, it's that innate human ability to really dive in there and like really gut the problem and extrapolate what you need and then recreate it using stuff you've read, stuff you've listened to, conversations you've had. That's the beauty that I don't know. I know for sure AI can't replicate that the way that we do it. Yeah. And I think that's our secret sauce still. Yeah. And I do want to encourage folks listening that may not have the resources to do some of the things we talked about. Listen, I think COVID was horrible, but one of the great things that happened was it reduced barriers to connection. Yeah. Like everybody's more accessible now. Yep. And so sending someone a DM, LinkedIn is free. You can get a free LinkedIn account. You can search for people that are experts in the thing that you love, whether it's authors or writers or whatever. And you just send a DM. Mm-hmm. And there is so many times people will just respond to you. Yep. Or redirect you to a resource, right? Yep.
And it's also one of those that you can have 20 meetings a day around the world and no time at all. Like in a day, you can have 20 meetings from people everywhere.
8 of my clients, and I have,
it's just a
global, it's just a global thing. Yep. How can people find you in the world?
How can people find me?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm business in Boca.
I mean, the best way, usually I'm at a chamber function. The best way to really is to go to our website, plumproductionsmedia.com. Got it. You've got all of our under our team, we've got everybody pictured there. You can click on my name and there you go. Find me on LinkedIn.
And what do you want people to know about kind of Plum Productions and what you bring to the world?
Well, I mean, I hope we bring the creative side of things, right? So we want to make sure that you're getting what you need. I think our biggest concern is having people understand that whatever your idea is, if there's a way to make it better, we'd love to be able to do that with you. And by better, it only means delivers more of what you need. So if you're trying to get people to understand what you do better, we want to help that amplify that. If we are trying to, work somebody through a process or teach people about something, whatever that is, we want to do that more creatively, more impactfully than what they had as an idea to begin with. Yeah. That's our goal always.
Yeah. And I feel like to some extent, video translates, it really is the translator between an idea into something that's more tangible. Yeah. Because it's on the inside, right? My idea and my grand thing for what I think is going to resonate. It's like a TED Talk until you put it on paper or in this case, video. Yeah.
It's fun to watch people say, I have an idea, and they try to describe it to you. And you're
like, I called you last week for.
Well, that's okay. It happens all the time. And when people call for an idea, they're like, I need this. Okay, and then I just start asking questions, and then they start to think, yeah, I know I need to do this. I need to do that. And sometimes it's a matter of we had somebody not too long ago that said, we did something with them before. They want to create a new thing. We don't want to have anybody that we have on our team on camera. We just want to do a voiceover. Okay, that's boring, but we can do that. And so we're trying to figure out how do we coordinate the message and do it impactfully so that it doesn't come across boring and it becomes entertaining a little bit, but at least gets the message across.
And people show up authentically. Yeah. I think even podcasting, when I look and I'm probably 30 episodes in, but the first couple I was like rewatching it. And one I dropped this week was actually one of my earlier ones. Yep. And it's so different. Like I'm more comfortable being myself. And I think with anything, the more you do it. And when I think about YouTube videos, I know you said your wife used to do a lot of YouTube back in the day. Yeah. But if we even look back at some of the top tier YouTubers now in their early days.
Yep. Totally different. Well, even Jen, when she started, she's got great information, but
listen, that's neither good nor bad. Yep. You remain neutral about it and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to get better and better. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Rob, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I love it so much. So if you've been playing it safe, if you've been waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect pitch, the perfect metric to use what we've been talking about, or the loud applause before you move, I hope that Rob's story today was a bit of a nudge for you. You don't need permission. You need clarity, consistency, and perhaps one bold, authentic step. So here's your move. Rewatch that moment in your life that felt like a failure, but was actually the start of something that could look like a reinvention. Reach out to someone today that you've been meaning to collaborate or learn from. Connection is currency. Right? That was one of the quotes you said. And I think that he's totally right with that. And so we talked about lowering barriers to what you think has to happen before you connect with someone. And I think just go for it. And if they don't respond to you, well, then just not worth your time. A little bit of an asshole factor. And remember, you're not too late. You're not behind. You're just one brave conversation away from a brand new level. So if this episode lit something up within you, please share with a friend, subscribe. Give us a 5-star review. My friends, Mike and Dan say that all the time. Yep. And if you've already done the quote, it's time to go beyond. This is Stacey, and I'll catch you next week.